Sears Holdings, parent company of Sears and Kmart, filing for Chapter 11 early this morning, succumbing to a mountain of debt and failure to adapt to a changing retail landscape. Sears faced a $134 million debt payment that was supposed to be due today.
Stacey, the retailer is still fighting to make sure their doors do not close forever. Now their future hangs on this last-minute bid by the company's chairman.
As Sears makes national headlines, let us review one of their biggest impacts on the world and Chicago. The Sears Tower, a monument for a dying company. In 1973, the Sears Tower was constructed, creating a triumph of structural engineering and providing a precedent for future construction. This would evolve into a tragedy due to the negative impact on the public's opinion of Sears, as well as the economic impact of reducing Sears' value. The first skyscraper was constructed in Chicago in 1885, named the Home Insurance Building. It was 10 floors tall, twice the building height at the time, constructed by William LeBaron Jenney, a pioneering architect. But why was this created, and not before? There were three main reasons for Chicagoan skyscrapers. First, the Bessemer process was invented in 1856, making it much cheaper to create an efficient skyscraper by quickly producing steel. Next were many inventions that made skyscrapers efficient and in high demand, such as fireproofing and safety elevators. And finally came the Chicago Fire in 1871, which acted as an urban wildfire to clear room for newer, taller buildings, including the Home Insurance Building. These reasons would facilitate skyscraper construction for business, and the skyscraper boom came, along with different styles. Most notably, in the 1920s, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe style began to gain traction. This style believed that architecture should follow the slogan of less is more, or that buildings should be as simplistic as possible. His philosophy would massively impact skyscraper and building construction in Chicago, creating many block-like buildings with no decoration. Van der Rohe's belief would become the new foundation for an architectural firm named Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, or SOM, which still exists today exercising his beliefs. Decades of skyscraper success later, this firm would eventually create the John Hancock Center, which acted as a precursor in its engineering structure and architectural design to Sears Tower, as well as its architects Bruce Graham and Fazlur Rahman Khan. As the skyscrapers rose, so did Sears. The first vestige of Sears was founded in 1886 when a man named Richard Warren Sears, working as a station agent in Minneapolis, made $5,000 from retailing gold watches by train. This idea impacted Sears so much that he eventually founded the R.W. Sears Watch Company, a company that sold watches by catalog and mail order. Hiring Alva C. Roebuck and renaming the company, Sears, Roebuck & Co. grew and expanded beyond watches. This catalog service was the Amazon.com of the early 1900s, and it would make Sears the largest retailer in the world until it eventually employed 1 in 204 people and produced 1% of the national domestic gross product, a massive figure for a single company. Sears would always have a problem with decentralization, and endeavored to fix this by creating larger buildings, the first being one of the largest wood structures ever built, but it would again decentralize over time. This issue would arise again in the 1970s, as Sears employees were scattered throughout Chicago and America. Due to SOM's reputation as economical, Sears contacted SOM for a building, with 4 million square feet of area, what Sears projected that it needed for the next 30 years. F.R. Khan and Bruce Graham, having just finished their grand success with the John Hancock Center, took the contract and went through many iterations, such as 2 boxes connected by a bridge and a tower with attached hotel. After a 1-year design period, the Sears Tower was ready for construction. The final design was a 1,454-foot tall building using a bundled tube structure and a steel support skeleton, which was covered in anodized aluminum. The construction process would take 4 years, from September 1970 to May 3, 1974, but many problems would arise both during and after construction. When the tower rose above the 67th floor, it would begin to impede television reception, causing double images all over Chicago by reflecting waves from nearby skyscrapers. This interception and its public reception would create the Illinois Citizens Committee for Broadcasting, which would petition the Federal Communications Commission twice to attack Sears, Roebuck & Company, forcing them to remove 250 feet of the planned height. This would eventually evolve into a court case led by Attorney General Jack Hugason, which was filed in September 1972. but it was declared that the courts did not have the power to stop a construction project. This even further agitated the public, and conflict between Sears and the public would evolve, with village trustee Stephen Slavin quoting, "This building is the height of corporate arrogance," as part of his campaign to earn a place in the Illinois Senate. Stories such as Jack Whale's experience of buying television antennas and stereo equipment, then having it suddenly impaired, also motivated the public. Sears had to deal with the problem, and made a significant change to the tower, coating it in Avram, a material that absorbs radio waves instead of reflecting them. It also paid $5 million to television companies so they could relocate their antennas to the Sears Tower, and $3 million to redesign the tower so it could withstand the extra forces created by the antennas. But this proved insufficient for the problem. The court case was appealed and continued, and at the end of the day, issued and affirmed two important verdicts on citizen rights and property ownership: that anyone could build as high as they want or can with no other laws, and that there is no right to clear television reception. This would impact future cases against skyscrapers, notably in the American National Bank skyscraper, which had a lawsuit for overshadowing a store. But Sears would encounter many more difficulties from the Sears Tower. In December 1974, at the end of the year the Sears Tower finished construction, the world entered an oil crisis. This was made even worse by the Nixon Foundation's decision to switch to a fiat standard, creating stagflation. At this point, Sears needed to pay the $100 million cost for constructing the Willis Tower. This would severely impact their profits, and in the final quarter, Sears had lost 47.7% of its stock worth, even when their profits had reached a maximum from heavy advertising. Originally, this heavy cost was meant to be paid by renting out the tower, but a surplus of office space disturbed this, as shown by pitiful sales of only 250,000 square feet, leaving the tower 3/4 empty. This would create downsizing of the company, and 300 people, a quarter of those that worked in the Sears Tower, walked out fired. This was out of the ordinary at the time, as other retailing chains had all shown a rise in sales during that quarter. This would severely impact Sears' ability to recuperate, and could never occupy the tower's entire space because of the cost.
Would Sears have gone on? Sure. Without the building, they would have. But I'm sure glad they built that beautiful headquarters building.
Sears would also never be able to retain its former status, and struggled to stay the world's largest retailer, while the competition increased. Sears' economic deficiency would also force it to contemplate moving its headquarters away from Chicago into the nearby suburbs of Hoffman Estates, after only 2 decades in the Willis Tower, and they would sell the tower in 1992. But the Sears Tower would continue to make headlines, most notably in 2009 when it was completely leased by the Blackstone Group, which also earned naming rights.
The tallest building in America is getting a new owner and a new name, presenting the Willis Tower.
But the Willis Tower, despite being taken from its builders, would continue to have many triumphant impacts. This groundbreaking tower would create many precedents for future construction in its economical and efficient engineering, and the many design elements that were incorporated for the first time in such a major skyscraper. One of the main achievements was that the Willis Tower was the first major tower to use the bundled tube structure, which offered major improvements over other skyscrapers, such as being more economical and able to sustain larger loads. This tower was truly a marvel of structural engineering, and was one of the main influences on the Burj Khalifa, the tallest tower in the world as of the present. The Willis Tower also used many new construction methods to build the tower. The first and one of the most important was the use of computer-assisted design software to design the tower. This paved the way for engineers to plan, draft, and eventually simulate structures virtually. Another was prefabricated parts. The Sears Tower used sections of steel with arms protruding from the surface pre-made in factories, which the workers named Christmas trees. This would greatly speed up the construction process, creating 2 floors a week and providing a precursor for the mini Sky City, a skyscraper built in 19 days. The Sears Tower also tested and pioneered modern construction techniques, such as creeper derricks and robotic window cleaners, all of which exist in skyscrapers today and are a vital part of construction and maintenance. It also set many building records, such as the tallest building at the time and containing the highest occupiable floor. It was also one of the largest buildings in America, second only to the Pentagon. In conclusion, the Sears Tower intercepted television reception, creating a strong public conflict involving a lawsuit, and tragically decreased Sears, Roebuck & Company's profits to the point where they had to sell the tower. However, it provided many construction precedents and impacted many more skyscrapers around the world, many of which can be clearly seen in the world today.